Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We are talking today about managed services and license governance, two very important and partially new points. And I have here with me today Tony Wise. Hi, Tony. How are you?
All good. Welcome to 2025, everyone, and to you, Francisco. And good evening. Good evening from Singapore. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico City, so the two sides of the world mostly. It's a pleasure to be doing this together with you, and also looking forward to meet you soon in Europe. So
Absolutely.
let's start off. This is something, and we were already talking before the start about it. So when Tony started with us a couple of years ago, came to me and said, we should do something about FinOps. I said, FinOps? Never even heard of it. What are you talking about? Now, 3 years later, we have engaged a lot in this area, built tools to support the clients and customers here, built processes and services around that. So thank you very much for your input, Tony, and thank you very much to bringing us, leading us in this direction. That's been a super idea. So
Sorry for all the work I've caused you. This is something I think that is an important starting thought or starting point for what we're doing today. This is a very interesting article from Gartner. I know you can explain it better than me, Francisco, particularly as it sounds like my connection is losing. But this is very important that what Gartner says about the future of SAP of license management. Obviously, we are very
yeah,
much
I mean, we too have been talking a lot about how to implement FinOps in the software area and what to do about it, etc. And suddenly, was like mid last year, Gartner came out with this idea. The future of the software asset manager is about governance, not counting licenses. Now, when we started talking about FinOps, we I noticed when we were analyzing the activities that we do on a day-to-day basis with our consultants, with the tools, etc., that the tools were focusing a lot on counting licenses, optimizing the license setup of single users, etc. But in reality, what happened during projects, it was more as analyzing contract terms, benchmarking prices, setting up financial scenarios, procurement plans for new licenses, decommissioning plans for other licenses. So it was a lot about changing, about handling changes, about consolidating data from multiple sources, because the tools were only able to mostly get together, users, engines, digital access, but now SAP, as all other manufacturers, has been shifting their target very much towards the cloud. So now they have the private cloud, the public cloud, still many on-premise things. Now there is a different business models behind it. But now the strategic planning assumption here, this is something I like very much in Gartner research notes. It says by 2026, organizations that reposition software asset managers from centralized execution to strategic governance and oversight will have 30% more efficient software spend than those who do not. And this is what we want to speak about today. So, what is it really? What does that mean? And how do you need to change your company and your setup, your processes in order to be more efficient and focus on what's important? So, here you see our agenda for today. What does it mean? FinOps-based software license governance. What is the work process needed? What are the benefits of working with a SAM managed services provider? Because this change in focus has also implications on what should you as a company, as the internal workers of the company, focus your time on, and what should you eventually externalize. So what kind of tools do you need? What is the duration of implementing this, and what are the benefits of this?
I mean, obviously, FinOps came about, as you said, about managing the cloud. It's sort of not a predecessor, a successor to the old SAM concept. and it's almost um, an inevitable development when you think about how the world has changed since the old on-premise days. When you had a contract, you could literally point at it. You set up your users in a system in a very centralized fashion. You counted your users in a very centralized fashion, and the pricing, well, was managed by one person in the organization very often. In a cloud, in a multifaceted, multi business cloud environment, you have many different stakeholders now. It's not just IT. It's not just finance. It's basically everyone is involved in this concept of how you manage your IT and your software environment. And I think this is where we're going to in this conversation. This is why Gartner is saying the old concept of your SAM manager, your software asset manager, one person looking at everything is sort of redundant nowadays. There's much more involved to it now. Now you have many more stakeholders, many more people involved. And it's also, when you think about it, it's so easy to provision people in cloud products. You can, the business brings people on. You don't need to go through a centralized IT function. And to make sure that everyone is involved, make sure that everyone is attuned to the company processes, to the company vision. That's what we're talking about by a managed service and governance, rather than just counting licenses.
Another concept that we are always discussing is the value of your ERP, the value of SAP for your company. So it is a totally opposite situation when you are doing pure financial accounting with SAP, maybe some controlling. That's why for a client who is doing supply chain management, logistics, material management, warehouse management, who knows what. So his critical business processes are on SAP. In that case, SAP is your key system. So maybe the value and also the cost that you're willing to take into account is much higher than when it is a simple accounting system. What Tony was saying, cloud is something that brought FinOps up. So big cloud environments, the shift of internal costs to external costs on hyperscalers, that was the original driver. Like a lot of the budget of the company, IT budget going outside. And then FinOps came out with the approach of bringing all the necessary teams together, engineering, finance, procurement, but also leadership and the product people. It is about collaboration. It is about, so you see, this is the FinOps framework that you can find on FinOps.org. There are trainings, there are explanations on this, just to have a bit of a background behind it. So mostly it is about the principles of FinOps. It is about its domains and capabilities. So what does it take care of? What does it concern? Concerns mostly cloud usage and costs. It concerns the quantification of the business value from the budget to the forecast, the planning, the comparison or benchmarking, the unit economics, so a bit like the categorization or category management that you had in procurement, applying this here. And then the cloud cost optimization, of course, you need to understand the usage and the categories of costs that you have to be able to optimize and implement those changes to improve your overall cost situation. And we have done our best to apply these principles here with the backup of Gartner, saying that we need to change software asset management in the future to apply these principles to software asset management. So how are we doing this today?
I want to go back to the previous slide a little bit, actually.
Yeah,
So
go on.
on the on that on the principles side, there's some very important statements in these six principles. Cloud deployment is not the same as buying on-premise licenses. On-premise licenses, building your infrastructure, getting your servers, putting everything in place to manage an SAP ERP system is very different to going to a cloud provider, buying some, provisioning some users, and suddenly you're spending an awful lot of money that's not being often not being well governed. So in other words, Francesco, I think where we're going with this is we are very much demonstrating our agreement with the Gartner article. We're very much saying that the old style asset management concept is disappearing, that it's very easy to lose control of your cloud environment. It's very easy to lose control of provisioning. It's very easy to lose control even of what's being deployed in your company, because so many people now have the ability to meet a niche requirement for their business area and then just go out and procure it. So this is why we're talking about bringing everyone together. This is why we're talking about having this managed environment to really bring control over everything that's happening in the organization.
Yep. And something that I noticed when we started implementing tools on the cloud was cost management is vital. So we had a certain amount of costs every month, and suddenly 1 month to the other, our costs doubled.
Hmm.
And although the hyperscalers do have some quite fancy tools to send you warnings, and but mostly when you find out, it's already too late because you already spent the money, right? So the implications now of developers, people taking some measures, setting up some quality assurance processes and things that weren't foreseen, they eventually can raise your monthly invoice by a lot. So getting in control of all those things and understanding what's going on there, it's much more immediate. It has immediate consequences. It has important financial consequences. So it's all about the management. So what have we done? Yeah,
Just
go
one
on,
thing
go
to
on.
add. A lot of people, when we talk about managing cloud environments, a lot of people say, I don't need to bother anymore. The vendor does it for me. You know, if I go over, then X, let's call it SAP. SAP will tell me, and SAP will track it for me, and SAP will let me know. So therefore, I don't need to manage it on my own anymore. But when you flip that story around, it means that SAP will charge you without you even knowing it. Or I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just SAP, of course. It's all the cloud
No, no, it's
providers.
everyone.
But so I'm not singling out SAP here. But if I were going to be spending more money, I would much rather know about it in advance. I'd much rather be in control of it rather than, as you say, just receiving that bill at the end of the month and finding out that suddenly the 20,000 I was expecting is now 40,000, or God forbid, the 2 million I was expecting is now 4 million.
So, what are we talking about? You need to evaluate, of course, what you have today and what are the main cost drivers. So, your inventory and the financial impact of category groups. Say, how much cost is on the database, how much cost is on your, say, SAP integration suite, how much is on success factors. So, of course, you need to plan and define the goals, the KPIs. What is your budget for this year? You need to implement tools that help you manage this. You need to still monitor, but with a much higher frequency than you did in the past. And you need to optimize. So in the past, you were mostly optimizing every day, every week users, and once a year you looked into the engines. That was about it. Now the complexity is increasing, and now you need to get a hand and get a hold on what's going on in your cloud configuration with SAP, be it servers, be it you're contracting your whole hyperscaler infrastructure through SAP. So you need to understand what you've contracted, but from different perspectives. Your technicians may mostly be controlling whether performance is still working. SAP tables are still big enough, or they need to increase the table sizes. You need a team to manage costs and what is happening there. SAP is providing quite fine tools on the BTP side, for instance, on SAP for me, which help you at least get a hold on understanding what's going on. But then again, they're usage orientated tools. They're not done to optimize, they're done for managing it. So we use them, we want to really get integrated with what SAP is offering there. But we need more than that. We need the FinOps perspective that gives us the deep insight into where the costs are coming from, what you need to keep your eyes on, you especially in your particular installation, because every installation is different. Some clients may have 3 cost drivers, others have 20 cost drivers out of 150 products from SAP that they bought. So you need to adapt this to your environment. So it's about understanding, quantifying, and optimizing. And this is a cycle that we want to support. What tools do we have here? Same as always, of course, license management tools on the one hand, but now we need to integrate them with SAP's tools. So the technology platform cockpit, the BTP cockpit, with the SAP for me on-premise, but mostly cloud consumption indications. So where is your success factors, your SAP Analytics Cloud, your extended warehouse management, your central finance, what are they consuming? But also your BTP development environments, your HANA database services on SAP's BTP Cloud, your SAP integration suite. What is happening there? Do you still have the proper contract model with your monthly subscription? Should you change this to an enterprise agreement? How about the server setup? Is it fine? Or are your people still setting up more development servers, sandboxes, etc.? So understanding, quantifying, optimizing. It's a cycle. Some things need a yearly optimization, others need it on a monthly basis. And we need tools that support that. In that environment, we started with Business Case Builder, which is a module of VOQUZ, to plan the future of SAP, the business transformation to SAP S/4HANA Cloud or on-premise. And now we came out with a new module, which is the VOQUZ FinOps Manager for SAP, which is all about the consolidation of cloud measurements together with on-premise measurements, USMM, SAP for me, BTP cockpit, SAMQ measurements, anything that you can get, but also generic measurements such as self-declaration or even external measurements from neutral sources via standard interfaces. So it's all about the consolidation, the financial interpretation of risks, and then, of course, get the expertise of the people who are doing this on a daily basis. That instead of using your time in counting licenses, which should not be your worry that much. This is state of the art today.
It's all
Anything
about
to
the
add here?
governance. Yeah, it's all about the governance, isn't it? I think is what we're saying. I mean, we've been doing this for more years than we care to remember, and we've always said that a proactive customer who comes to us and wants to understand their SAP environment, wants to understand their usage, wants to understand their risk areas, they're a perfect customer for us. But the brutal reality is that many customers come to us only when they have a problem. You know, when they're being hit by an audit, when they've got an unbudgeted expense, when they have no idea about how to move to RISE or whatever, then they come and seek out our expertise. And I think what we're saying here is that as your IT environment becomes ever more complex, then this reactive approach becomes ever more problematic for you. You need to put in place this governance model, and it's not just about running SAMQ, although SAMQ, of course, is very important. It's about the whole framework around your management. And yes, the tools that we have and the managed services that we provide take away a lot of the the donkey work from that. They take away a lot of the stuff that you can have your IT teams and your asset management teams focusing on what we said spoke about before, about bringing everything together, about making sure the communication is there, about making sure the framework is there, that you know what's going to be provisioned before it happens, that everyone knows the rules, everyone knows what they need to follow. And this is where we're going with this conversation. Focus Labs can help with absolutely managing the assessment and the analysis and the commercial aspects of your licensing. Um, your internal teams need to manage, the communication, need to make sure that the right principles are in place to enable this to make sense.
Exactly. So, and what has changed on the tools side? So, of course, we still use SAMQ to manage mostly users, engines, digital access, HANA. So the typical things that you want to manage in the core, in your core ERP system, be it ECC, be it S4HANA, cloud or on-premise with the RISE version or not, but it is the core. Now, the thing that's been changing is that earlier you had an ERP core, and on the same server or different servers, you had engine add-ons to it. Now they are on a total different platform. They are on the cloud, on BTP, even on an hyperscaler cloud, or you have still your own servers and part of it, and some part of it is on SAP's cloud. So the complex heterogeneous environment is changed, and this is why we built the advisory queue FinOps manager. So one of the big tasks here is to consolidate the measurement sources. So say SAMQ, say SAP for me, cloud consumption, say BTP cockpit. Now we need to enrich this data with financial data. Because, well, as you know, SAP's price lists are still not public, and even if they were, you don't pay list price. So you need to enrich your bill of materials with the specific prices that you're paying to SAP to understand what you're paying for a single product. On top of that, you need to do budgeting. You need to compare your budget with your actual status of consumption and your compliance risks, what will eventually come in the course of the year to warn your management. We are increasing our spend in this area. You need to foresee additional financial resources for this part. But on the other hand, we have discovered that we have this things that we are not using this anymore, or we need to come to an agreement with SAP because we bought these tools and haven't yet implemented them. We don't want to upgrade them since they are not in production yet, etc. So managing all of this is what we are doing. We do it with SAMQ, we do it with Advisory Queue FinOps Manager, we do it with the experts. Now, typically, and this is also something that Gartner is backing up very much. Gartner is telling you focus on the governance of your licenses. What is governance? It is about understanding the usage, yes, but mostly understanding the value and the financial impact of these licenses. And Gartner is saying too, well, delegate the donkey work, as Tony called it, to specialists like us. We know the use rights of SAP's tools. We know what license, what the user has in terms of rights, and can set up your environment, classify users. We can read an SAP for me consumption report and make an interpretation of it. We can decide that an SAP engine has, say, 20 different measurements, but only 10 of those are relevant, and can clean this up for you and make the interpretation so that the data that you get is already cleaned up. It is refined with the financial information, but you can concentrate on understanding, well, what are the results of this? You can control how this data comes together, etc. but you concentrate on the results, on dashboards, on the things that are important here, and leave the donkey work to specialized companies like us. So when you set up such a managed service, mostly targeted to quarterly reporting plus some tasks that we do once a year, you have an implementation phase. And this implementation phase mostly takes between 2 and 4 months. And it is all about doing an initial assessment of your bill of materials. It is about understanding your contract terms and conditions. It is about benchmarking your prices, entering the data, all this data into your FinOps tool, in this case, the VOQUZ FinOps Manager. So we enter your specific prices, your bill of materials, your specific metrics, those that are relevant for your company. We connect FinOps Manager with SAMQ. We connect it with the SAP for me, decide where to exchange files, and give you the first ELP that comes out of the tool, and then set up the process to have this happening quarterly, to have a bill of materials update process when you purchase new products to it, add new products to it, to have a quarterly measurement process set up so that you can see the historic development of your usage and see what is bound to happen next year. Will it be more? Will it be less, etc.? And then you enter in this FinOps space license governance, where you get quarterly reports about all the dimensions of usage, and you report, you evaluate these two reports, discuss them with us in a quarterly session, and see, have we urgent potential risks? Do we need to change setups, etc.? So that's about it. That's about the implementation process. So we are just starting to bring the bigger automation. We've been doing this managed service for a couple of years now, but now it's about increasing the complexity and adding with the FinOps Manager a lot of new measurements coming from the cloud. I very much look forward to it. And honestly speaking, still learning, still seeing what is the core. It's a fairly new discipline. It's super interesting, but I like what you get as a customer at the end. So why should we do it, Tony? Going back to this last slide, what does it bring you to implement FinOps in your company when it comes to software management?
Just one point I need to make is that donkeys do a lot of heavy lifting, yeah, a lot of very important work. So I'm not denigrating donkeys when I say that we do the
Yeah,
donkey work. Um, what do you get? Essentially, what you get is an overview, a proactive overview of your potential risks and the management of your environment. That's what you need. No one likes sticker shock when they get the bill at the end of the month. No one likes to be told by their CEO that they're wasting money. No one likes to have the stigma of unknown costs coming your way and you've got no idea why they're coming or what they're for. No one likes to know whether they're getting to not know whether they're getting value for their investment. These are things that everyone should be wanting, in my opinion. Um, and as I say, in the ever complex world of managing IT environments, it's not easy for one guy to sit in a room and look at the contracts and look at reports and say that they're managing an SAP or any IT environment. This is exactly where FinOps came from. This is why Gartner is saying that this is the future of the practice. And I guess this is why we are building these tool sets to help our customers to transition into this reality. That's why we're doing it. And that's why we're here today.
I agree. I agree. So, as said, and rounding this up, it is about governance. It is not anymore about counting licenses. It is about consolidating and simplifying and visualizing the complexity in the new mixed heterogeneous on-prem and cloud environments, on heterogeneous contracts, subscription and on-premise based. lots of different metrics. BTP products can be purchased in an enterprise agreement, subscription-based, pay-as-you-go. Some other products, they are based on business metrics, like employees, revenues. Other tools have metrics like business objects, customer objects, product objects, etc. The complexity has increased. The sources of the data are more than they were a couple of years ago. And we are trying to help you out here by providing the visibility that you need to manage those environments, understand them, provide easy reporting, and make your life easier when it comes to managing those risks and handling those costs. That's about it. So approach us when you have questions. We'll gladly discuss this about you and showcase you what we are doing here in this environment. Thank you very much for listening today to us. Thank you very much, Tony, again, for your contribution about FinOps and your ideas that pushed very much in this direction, and for participating today. And now let's go over to the Q&A session.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Stefan. I'm going to guide you through the Q&A session technically. Tony, thanks very much for staying with us. And before we hit it off, I'd like to launch a small poll consisting of 4 questions where we just see the trend where we all stand. Don't worry about compliance, so nobody sees sort of your name if you participate. And we will probably not even see the amount of questions answered. So let's try it out and see what happens, just to see what's trending, what's not. Let me try and start this. You should be seeing this in a minute. And here we go. The question is, do you consider switching to FinOps-based license management? Have you thought of that? I'm going to leave this open. Hopefully this works properly. Yeah, I'm going to leave this open for another 5 seconds from now. And then we're going to see who's thinking about this already, who still thinks they're not there yet, or they're busy with other things, or they're actually in a conservative environment where the next decision is taking quite a bit of time until you make it as a company or as a team. And then we'll see. Tony, I'm quite curious what you think about the trend itself. Let me just end the poll now in 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm just confirming by one attendee that you don't see how many people answer. So we're around 50 here, and we're trying to get an average of what the answers are. Let me end the poll and share the results for you guys so you see that. Tony, what do you think? 75% to 25, pretty straightforward. I thought it would be less. Am I too pessimistic?
I think you are a little bit. As Francisco said in the webinar 2 or 3 years ago, FinOps was almost an unknown word. Nowadays, it is getting a lot of traction in the market. The cloud environments are pretty pervasive, and I think people understand that there needs to be a bit more than the traditional SAM processes. I'll be interested to see the people who said no. Is that because they don't have cloud environments, or they just aren't aware of the FinOps concepts? But realistically, I think this makes sense. People are becoming aware that they do need to manage their cloud environments in a much more effective manner than they have done so in the past.
Good point. We might actually come back to you on that very question regarding the no that Tony just mentioned. So why not? So what's the reason? Is there anything that's lacking from you knowing that this is a good way to do it, or is it just sort of an internal decision where you don't know why? Let's go back to the poll list and see the next one. You should be seeing question number 2 now. And this is about how well do you speak to each other in your company, as simple as that. Do finance, legal, procurement, and IT teams collaborate well in your company from your perspective? That's also what this is about. I'm really curious about this. Leaving this open for another 8 seconds from now. And here, I mean, I'm seeing what's happening live. Here, I would be quite pessimistic as well, knowing that unfortunately the departments don't really talk to each other because they have different perspectives, and it's maybe not even implemented. But that might change if they see the same information, the same data. Ending the poll in 3 seconds from now, and sharing the results. And this is almost better than I thought it would be. So I'm on the pessimistic side today. What do you think, Tony?
I'm a little bit in agreement with you, actually. I'm just a little bit surprised that more people think they collaborate than don't. Maybe it's something to do with the size of the company. I don't know. Certainly in our experience with large enterprises, the finance, legal, procurement and IT teams are often actually in conflict. They often have different objectives and different goals. Finance is there to restrict cost. IT is there to harmonise business processes. Procurement is there to reduce how much they spend. And so they all have sort of these conflicting goals that they're trying to meet. If you're in a large enterprise and all these teams already work together, then hallelujah. If our experience is that there are inherent, as I said before, inherent conflicts in the objectives, in the KPIs of these different teams, and that really has the potential to cause conflict within the organisation. Harmonising that understanding, harmonising the approach is pretty much crucial to the future of cloud asset management, in my opinion.
And wouldn't a well-designed dashboard actually help that for everybody to see the information that's important for them? Isn't that exactly the point?
Of course. Whether it's a dashboard, whether it's, I don't know, a sticker on the wall, obviously we're going to advocate a dashboard. But anything that everyone has bought into and everyone contributes to and everyone agrees with, whether they agree with the result, but they agree with how the result has been come to. Of course, it's very important. We need the common consensus.
A sidekick, because I see you moving around. I don't think you have some visions there. So are you fighting a mosquito or something? What's going on?
I'm fighting mosquitoes at the moment, yes. But my apologies, everyone.
I actually envy you, because here with 5 degrees centigrade, it's a bit of a different story. So let's jump back to the next poll question. The third one out of 4, and it says, are your licensing strategies aligned with your business objectives? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, because nobody has thought about it, and sometimes they're, as you just said, might be contradicting what we think we need now and what the business objectives are, especially when it comes to saving costs and stuff. So I'm really curious about this. I'm going to leave this out open for another 5 seconds. You just wanted to say something. Go ahead, Tony.
No, I'll be interested to see what this is, but of course it depends upon who answers the question, doesn't it, really? Because some people won't even know what the licensing strategies are. So your legal team, for example, may have no idea whatsoever what the licensing strategies are.
It's a good point. This comes from the direction of the people who sort of take care of it. So do they feel it's aligned with the business objectives? And if not, why not? Is this a question of communication again? I'm going to close it and show the results. And it says 67% say yes, they are. So people, in this case at least, looks like they are talking to each other to a certain extent. What's important about this?
Or the person who's answered is in a position where he understands the licensing, or she understands the licensing and business objectives. It's very difficult to, I think. I mean, yes, it's great that 67% think they understand the licensing and business objective. Whether that's true if you go and speak to your procurement people, whether it's true if you go and speak to your business areas, I don't know that I don't know if your business managers, I don't know if your sort of finance team, for example, the people who work in HR, particularly care about your licensing strategy, as long as they have access to the software that means they can do their job. And I think that's the connection that we're trying to make in this session. We want everyone to be aligned with, yes, we need the software to do our job, but we also need to understand the implications and the cost implications and everything else that comes with it when we make those decisions. So yeah,
What
67%.
What actually makes everyone an ambassador, sort of, ambassador for having a good governance in place, so everything works, and it's not just, does the push of a button work or not, but how does it work in general? Going back to the poll list, to the last one. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Launching the last question out of 4. Thanks for participating in this, by the way. You should be seeing it on the screen now. So would you consider reducing operative SAP costs by partnering with a SAM managed service provider? So is this something that you're thinking of? They say, okay, this is not, at least at the beginning, not only an inside job, a team job, but is something there is a reason to go and ask for help externally. I'm going to leave this open for another 7 seconds from now. Really curious how ready the people are to do that. Closing in 3 seconds, so feel free to make your clicks. Place your bets, please. Here we go, ending and sharing the results. Oh, this just jumped back again. Let me show you. It's a 50-50 situation. It must be a very even number of people who have answered this.
Well, 50-50.
You've answered it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, 50-50 would sort of suggest evenness. Maybe we've frightened people. Maybe people who are frightened if they say yes, then we'll be immediately contact them to try to sell them something. I think
a protective answer.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you are considering using a third party or whether you consider doing it yourself, I think the message that we're trying to get across today is whether or not you use a third party, it's important that you do it. So I'm actually more interested in the no's than the yeses, if you see what I mean. I'd be very interested to see why people wouldn't want to partner. Is it because they don't see the requirement? Is it because they don't see the value in using someone else? Is it because they have the internal teams already doing it? There's lots and lots of answers. But if those no's also mean yes, I think it's very valuable, but no, we wouldn't use a third party, I think that's an important part of the conversation we're having today. If we haven't managed to convince people that this is important, that would be more concerning for me.
Thanks for this. Thanks for elaborating. Closing the poll now. Thanks everyone for participating. I'd say let's go over to the questions. I've got one organizational technical one. We will be sharing the PowerPoint material. It's actually adjusted to produce the webinar. Let me see if I can produce a version that we're able to share with you guys. So not a problem. And the second one is.
But of course, the webinar will be on our website anyway, so everyone can go and listen to it again and again.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. You're right. And we also sort of share the recording again, and you can share it with your colleagues. So a good point, Tony. Thanks for this. Jumping over to the actually content-based question. And, okay. What's a good team setup for governing SAP licenses this way? So I don't know, is it a headcount you could name? Can you sort of make it dependent on the size of the company, on who talks to each other at what point, on a timeline? What do you think, Tony? How would you approach this?
Yeah, I think we covered this quite a lot during the webinar. Realistically, it's a multi-headed beast nowadays. Yes, of course, in different organizations, different people have high-level control over IT and IT spend. I think we've discussed today that there's many people in the organization have influence and say over that spend. So it could be procurement teams, it could be your business managers, it could be your financial teams, it could be your IT teams. It's making sure that everyone is aligned. How big is your team? I think to a large extent depends upon how large is your enterprise, and how how specialized the knowledge is in certain different areas. Maybe if you're in a relatively small environment, then one person, two people, three people might be enough to manage the whole environment. In a large enterprise, we're probably talking about significant number of people who need to be involved, and then that information is brought together with two or three individuals, obviously using the information that you garner via your FinOps manager. So it's a little bit of a depends answer, but the crucial component of the answer, I think, is not just one person. It is a team of people. How many are in your team depends upon the complexity of your environment.
Yeah, a classic depends on answer, but you're actually giving quite a few factors what the people should be factoring in and consider in order to make the decision. I think that works fine that way. And the next one is very simple. What are the next steps? So I presume, or let's rephrase that from our perspective. What would be the next steps to find out whether this works for a company? How can we prove that this is actually a thing to do? I'm thinking of Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was thinking of a proof of concept in terms of the tools, but how can you sort of check whether this is the right path? So what are the next steps in that?
I don't think that it's a conceptual leap rather than something else. I mean, this is not something like, so for SAMQ, of course, we do proof of concepts, and you can see tangible evidence very, very quickly that SAMQ does exactly what we say it does. And in fact, this actually answers a question I can see here coming about smooth ways to analyze transaction codes, T codes. So SAMQ does exactly that. It analyzes T codes, it analyzes usage, it analyzes authorizations, and then it comes up with your optimal license environment based on what you need. So very easy on the technical side that we can demonstrate how it works. On the conceptual side, you need to a certain extent, buy into it. You need to understand that you have an issue, and you need to understand that this is a complex environment. And I think that there needs to be a level of maturity in the organization to be able to take that step into talking to people like us, talking to people who are sort of experts in this area to discuss your environment and to discuss how it all fits into your environment, to be honest with you. We do feasibility studies and viability checks with organizations to really look at their licensing environment and to look at their organization, and then we make recommendations about how they should be creating their managed service environment. Sometimes it's not FinOps, of course, because the cloud is not everywhere, but it is increasingly FinOps. Again, we have an it depends answer. But speaking to us and speaking to my colleagues, we come up with the recommendations and the structure that you need as an organization.
Excellent. That's it for now, the way it looks. If you have questions that go more into detail or require a more complex answer, please feel free to reach out to us via labs@voquuzlabs.com. I'm going to be sharing a link with the recording of the webinar for you to share with your colleagues.
There was just one quick question about elaborate
go ahead.
on SAMQ. So SAMQ is an SAP add-on. It sits typically in Solution Manager, but it could be any system, ABAP system, and it analyzes the licensing requirements based on actual usage in the SAP system. It also has the functionality nowadays to analyze licensing requirements based on authorization. But of course, we always say that you shouldn't be paying for what you're authorized to do. You should be paying for what you actually need to do. So that's where SAMQ. So for the person who asked that question, please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone within VOQUZ Labs, and we can provide a demo on what SAMQ does. We can do that. We can do that for you specifically.
Excellent. I'm out of questions. Do you see anything on your screen still? Otherwise, I would close the session and say thank you to everybody.
Nope, all good. But I will say thank you to everybody first. I'll try and get in there. So thank you.
Tony, thanks. Thanks to you guys. See you in the next webinar of VOQUZ Labs. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.